Conditional rendering in React. Hello, everyone. Today we're going to explore an essential concept in React known as conditional rendering. This technique allows us to make our applications more dynamic and responsive to user interactions and conditions. So whether you're new to React or looking to deepen your understanding, this session will help you with the knowledge to implement conditional rendering effectively in your React applications. What is conditional rendering? So at its core, conditional rendering in React is about displaying content or elements based on certain conditions. Similar to regular JavaScript, where we use control flow statements such as if else to decide which code block to execute, in React, we use similar concepts to determine which components or elements to render. So this flexibility in React is what makes them so powerful for building interactive user interfaces. Basic example. So let's start with a simple example to help our understanding. Say we're building a packing list component for an astronaut. So this component renders a list of items, each with which can be marked as packed or not. So here is how the basic structure looks. There is a item component, there's a packing list component, and inside packing list component, there will be this item component. So notice how each item component takes in name and is packed as props. So our goal is to visually indicate which items are packed. Conditional rendering with if else. So one of the simplest ways to implement conditional rendering is by using the if else statement. So if going back to this packing list component, we see that in this item component, we haven't used is packed. So by using if else component in our item component, we can, if else statement in our item component, we can check if an item is packed or not. So if it is packed, what we can do is we can append a check mark to its name. Otherwise, we can render item as is. This approach gives us a clear, straightforward way to conditionally render different JSX based on our is packed condition. Rendering nothing with null. What if we want to hide packed items altogether? Because we only are worried about not packed items. In React, components can return null to render nothing. This is particularly useful when you want to conditionally hide elements based on certain conditions. For instance, by returning null for packed items, we can ensure that only unpacked items are visible in our list. The ternary operator. So for inline conditional rendering, the ternary operator is really useful. It allows us to succinctly express conditional logic within our JSX. So here is how we can use it in our item component to conditionally render a packed item with a strike-through effect, because we are using this dill HTML. So this operator helps keep our code concise, readable, especially for simple conditional logic. So if is packed is true, then we will have we'll display this. this packed is not true, we'll display just name. Using logical AND. This is another useful shorthand in React. It's perfect for cases where we want to render something based on a truthy condition and render nothing otherwise. In this example, we use a logical AND to conditionally append a checkmark to packed item. It's one of the clean and efficient ways to include conditional elements in our render output. Assigning JSX to variables. When dealing with more complex conditional logic, assigning JSX to variables can enhance readability. By initializing a variable with a default value and reassigning it based on conditions, we make our code more flexible and maintainable. This approach is particularly useful when the conditional rendering logic gets too cumbersome for inline expressions. So you can see this example. We are assigning this ternary operator into item content, and we're displaying item content. Recap and best practices. So to wrap up, conditional rendering is a powerful tool in React that allows us to build dynamic and responsive UIs. There are multiple ways you can use conditional rendering, whether you use if-else statements, ternary operators, the logical AND, or assign JSX to variables. The key is to choose the approach that makes your code clean and understandable. So the best choice often depends on the complexity of the condition and your personal or team's coding preferences. So I encourage you to keep practicing these patterns, then it'll become your second nature in your React development toolkit. Thank you for your attention today.